Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Build Your Best Life. My name is Jocelyn Charles. I am your host for this evening, and you are watching our Blueprint for Success broadcast, where we bring on an awesome guest and get to pick their brain and talk about some of the areas of expertise that they can share to help young men. This platform is all about building up young men to grow into successful, productive members of society, help them get on track, stay on track, and sometimes get back on track. So,
Hmm.
welcome our guest today, Pastor Jason Basden. How are you this evening, Pastor Jason?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, and I'm excited about our discussion tonight.
Thank you for being here. We greatly appreciate you returning. I know you are no stranger to build your best life. For our
Absolutely.
viewers, you are in for a treat. Make sure you like this live, give us some hearts, a thumbs up. We really appreciate your participation in the chat. That gives us some more things to feed off of. And share, share, share. Share this with young men who could use some tools and some guidance on staying on track, getting back on track, or just in whatever they need to transition into the next phase of adulthood. And to parents as well, parents who have young men. Our topic for this evening is hidden strongholds in a young man's life. So, again, Pastor Basin, I'd like to thank you for joining us this evening. And I have a few questions for you about this topic. I know you are going to drop some great nuggets.
Yes, of course.
What are some common hidden strongholds young men struggle with today?
Wow, what an amazing question. You know, there's so many different strongholds I can bring up tonight, but I think one of the major stronghold and what is connected to a lot of downfall in our youth today is identity. They don't know who they are, so they settle for anything. And this is why we have so many gang relations, and we have so many young men practicing homosexuality. They are after one thing, and they are trying to find why we are in a identity crisis today. And as a result to this crisis, we see all around us today, young men are doing things that even you and I sometimes wonder where their head is, what are they thinking? And it's
Yes,
simply because they're trying to find themselves. And I think this is as a result, and a lot of things that are going on in society today as a result of identity crisis.
that's awesome that you shared on that key factor because a lot of times that is the dominating factor, their identity. We got some questions about that, so I want you to elaborate even further. It's
Yeah.
interesting that you brought that up. So, what role does identity and self worth play in developing strongholds?
Well, if when you us as parents, let me start by this. Us as parents have a great job, a great, and I believe is a tedious job. Us as parents have because we have to introduce our children to themselves. Let them know that they are missing. That nothing is missing. Nothing is broken. I'm going to borrow a few of Coach Ricardo's statement. Nothing is missing. Nothing is broken. And they are who God made them out to be. They don't have to feel intimidated when folks come around them. They don't have to try to fit in, but God, they are unique in their ways, and God did not make any mistake. So us as parents have to mold that in them at a very young age. The Bible, I'm reminded of the scripture that says we ought to train up the child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they'll not depart from it. And this is so important for us parents to do, because when we're training up the child, we're helping them to discover who they really are in Christ. not who we want them to be, but who God designed them to be. And
Exactly.
this is a big thing in parenthood around the world today. A lot of parents today want the child to be like them. And God is simply saying, I have a unique calling for them. You did your part. You were effective in the calling that I have called you. You touched lives, but this particular child, I have a next avenue for them to accomplish. So training up the child in the way they should go is very important. Teaching them that they are unique. And one of the things too in doing that too, this just drop in. One of the things in doing that too, you help when you see that gift in the child, you don't try and deviate them from that gift, but you try to steer them in the right direction so that they can develop that gift. And this is so important. Us as parents, God has given us this not only natural maturity, but if we are in the family of God, if we serve God, God has given us the ability to discern certain gifts and qualities children have inside of them.
That is so good. And you spoke about an example of an ideal situation that parents have a great responsibility, in which we do. But what about the children, the young men who may not have come up in an ideal household, where some parents may be struggling with some of their baggage, they hadn't quite gotten over it, or they've strayed away from the ways of the Lord in righteousness in what they're going through in their lives when their children, their sons are teenagers and they're not doing their best at setting the right example or doing their best in giving guidance. I want you to speak to those young men who may not have that ideal foundation in their lives about their identity and the role that the identity and self worth play in developing these strongholds.
It's funny you said that, and because, and I'm just going to be blunt with the parents. There are many kids today. There are many teenagers, young adults. There are many, even elementary kids. They are practically growing up themselves. The reality is that the parents is never at home. So they basically have to grow up themselves. They get up in the morning. They have to get dressed for school. In some cases, they have to make their own lunch because the parents is out before them, and then they have to do what they have to do. You know, but it is so important that it goes right back to what I said earlier. It's so important that we train our kids in a way that when we're absent, they are still carrying on things.
Yes, that's
In
true.
the parents' absence, the kids knows exactly what to do because they are being trained properly. Now here it is. You touch on something that a child that really don't really grow up with any parent around them, or perhaps maybe the parents are being doing their own thing, maybe involved in drugs or you know solicit sex or whatever the situation is. But guess what? There is still help. I think one of the main problem in our society today and homes today is pride. It's pride. A lot of parents today,
Yeah.
before they go to the church, before they seek professional advice, they just rather just hang around and let the child life just be destroyed, let everything fall apart before they can simply say, "I need help."
That is very good and so true. We've all seen it in some of our inner circles, individuals that we know, grew up with. Some of us seen it in our families. Pride is a killer of development for our children and improvement for our own personal lives as parents. Why do young men hide the strongholds that they're dealing with instead of seeking help?
I would go back to what I said earlier, pride, but let me add something in there because they were not trained to express themselves. When I was growing up, I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I don't like to say that because people will be able to calculate my age. But, when I was growing up, they said when you express yourself like that, you kind of soft, But it shows that it's good to be transparent. It's good to be honest. And we have to create that type of environment as parents so that our kids can be honest and transparent with us. And how do, and we're going ahead of ourselves, how do we create that environment? You as a parent have to build up that relationship whereby you communicating with your child, not only every now and then, but you communicating with your child on a regular basis. You talk to them when they come from school in the evenings. How was your day? How did things go? You know, how was your lessons today? What did you learn today? What did you should ask difficult questions. What who upset you today? What did you know, what was the issue? You had any issue in the classroom today? Did anybody touch you inappropriately?
Yes.
Difficult questions like that. We don't dive into difficult questions like that when it comes to kids, simply because we afraid of their reaction. We afraid of how they're going to respond. But you must create that type of environment, and this is so important. You must talk about your life, and how you create that type of environment. You talk about your life. Oh, I had a very busy day today. I went to see this person. I went to see that person. Oh, the traffic on the highway was so busy. We had a bumper to bumper traffic. So you creating that avenue. You telling them about your life. So in actuality, you're getting them comfortable in your presence.
That's really good. You mentioned that for the young men, sometimes it can also be pride, but I want to hear your thoughts about what if some of the issues you brought up that they could be going through, some of the questions that parents should be asking about the embarrassment and shame, because sometimes it's embarrassment and shame. They don't want to share certain things. And those young men, we've known some households. Some of us grew up in households where we were, taught what goes on in this house stays in this house, and so they haven't been conditioned to reaching out for help. How do you speak to those young men, regardless of that type of situation and the things that they've been taught in that manner? How to reach out for help? How to utilize their resources?
It comes right back to our conversation. We must bring to their awareness that help is available for them.
Yes.
And one of the things that we must drill in the young people, the next generation, is that, guess what? You don't have to stay in this position. This is a very powerful statement. God has something better for you. You don't have to stay in this homosexuality relationship. You don't have to stay in bullying. You don't have to stay in peer pressure. You don't have to stay in this pornographic spirit that is overtaking your life. You don't have to stay in this whatever situation they're going through. You help them. You, like I said earlier, you build an environment, and then and after you already build that relationship with them, let them know that help is available for them, because it's very important. Because a lot of young persons today in our society, they don't know help is available for them. They never was taught that. Their parents never told them. You know, you don't have to stay in this position. You know, God has something better for you, and this is why we're going ahead of ourselves now. This is why we must introduce our kids to God. We must let them know that God has great things in store for them. We
Yes.
must let them know about putting God first in everything.
Absolutely. And as parents, we have to model that. They have to see us going to the Father in prayer and putting our trust in Him, and understand what that faith walk looks like. Is more than just a belief, is walking out in faith and knowing that God, our Father, He will provide. Right. I love
Absolutely.
that. I love that. I want to take a moment to say hello to our viewers who are tuning in. Hello, Miss Katie Cradell. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Mr. Dan Smith, we greatly appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for your participation in the chat. I am having an awesome conversation with Pastor Jason Basden about hidden strongholds in a young man's life. So if you know a young man who is struggling with some strongholds, make sure you share this live with them. It could be via social media or send it to them directly in their messenger or via text or to their email. Make sure they stay plugged into conversations like this because this is very, very helpful. So, Pastor Jason, how can mothers create a safe space for their sons to open up?
There it is right there. Mothers, because, in most society today, I'm happy that you brought it up. In most homes today, the father is absent. And it's funny that you said, how do mothers? Mothers need to, just be open with kids. And I don't want to bash the mothers today, especially with the young men, but I want to speak specifically about the young men today. A woman cannot teach a young man or young boy how to be a man. He needs mentorship. He needs the next man, whether it be in the church or someone that is respectable and some man of God or whatever the situation is, to come alongside that mother and help that young man how to be mature as a young man, how to be responsible as a young man, how to do the things that he needs to do to grow up into a respectable young man. This is ultimately important in the homes today. And it takes, guess what? That comes right back to what you and I discussed earlier, that mother have to realize that, guess what? I need help from my son.
Absolutely.
You
Mothers
know?
have to definitely put that pride aside because we do need help. Pastor Basden, I am a single mother and I raised a son. So I knew when it was time to reach out for help. And I did just that. He had three mentors or men that he could choose from that he knew, that he saw on a weekly basis. I would let him know you can call this person, number one, number two, and number three. And if you need some help with this, because some things I'm not going to be able to teach you. I don't know. I answered all the questions till I was blue in the face, and it didn't seem like I was giving the right answer. And then I recognized I didn't have the right answer because it wasn't my experience. It wasn't my walk. My dad was always in my life, but I was from a child's position with my relationship with my father. It wasn't, I didn't have the answers. So, and as mothers, we do have to be okay if our sons reveal something in our household in seeking that mentorship. We have to be okay and just lay that down. Something that you may not want the mentor to know about you personally. A lot of times that's the breakdown. And mothers don't want to foster their children out to a mentor that they know can help their child, because it's going to reveal some things about them as mothers or some things about the household that isn't all the way put together. And so pride gets in the way from development, but it once you release it, it doesn't hurt. It only hurts when you're trying to hold it, when you're trying to protect yourself from certain things being revealed. And so I know that personally. Once you release that child and let them talk to those mentors that you know and trust, it's going to be okay. So that's my tip to the mothers out there who could be struggling with that.
You know what? You know what? Too. I think, not think, but I know that accountability is still a powerful way to grow up a young man. Accountability, not only a young man, a young lady as well.
Mm-hmm.
We need them to realize that they need to be accountable for their actions. And this is where mentorship comes in. Accountability, letting them know that you have to be responsible for everything that you do, everything you say, and this is why mentorship is so important. And this is why, especially the young men today, just help them to discover their strengths and their weaknesses. When you have accountability, when you have mentorship, it helps them to discover really who they really are. When you discover your strengths and your weaknesses, you really are discovering who you really are. This is the way God designed me. I don't have to feel intimidated. I don't have to try to fit in.
That's really good.
I don't have to join your gang to be cool.
They need to be reminded of those things, of their identity, knowing their strengths, so they can value themselves. It starts with value as well. That helps build self-respect. So, what are some practical steps? You gave some tips, but give the young man some practical steps to help break some of these strongholds.
In society today, we have a lot of programs, mentorship programs. We have a lot of not necessarily school. I know the school have their program too. And in the churches today, us as the body of Christ, we need more programs for young adults, teenagers, youths, because the truth is they are the future.
Yes.
So if we don't steer them in the right direction, we have a big problem. When I was thinking about our session this evening, I thought about when we were growing up. Like I said earlier, I grew up in the 80s and 90s where we didn't have much technology. I don't even remember having an iPad or a cell phone when I was growing up. We didn't have these things. Even the TV we had, we didn't have smart TV and all that. TV, it was a special occasion that we watched TV, and probably once or twice a week. So in society today, they have so much technology, and some would say they have too much distraction, right? But this is where us as parents come in. This is where the mentorship comes in. We must teach the young generation how to remain focused on the things that is vitally important for their life. And the young generation, I'm not afraid to say it, they are smarter than us. The younger generation, they are smarter. Just last night, my young daughter, who is about 8 years old, she was able to type something on the iPad much faster than me. I'm about 40 plus years older than her. She was able to show me factual evidence of something on the iPad, my iPad, faster than me.
Yes, it's so true, because the younger generation, they have grown up with the technology. As the technology improves, so does the lesson for the younger generation. And they have so many resources at the tip of their fingers. They are more resourceful using those tools, the iPads, their phones, their laptops. They know how to get to the information like that. And I totally agree. I text slow. You watch a 20-year-old send a text message, and they're just, their little fingers are flying with no typos. And so,
we used to say that technology is from the devil. But look at it. Technology is helping the gospel to spread around the world.
Absolutely.
And basically, you don't really need a paperback book anymore. You can read most of the information online.
It's true.
And so it's just a matter of keeping the young adults and the youths focused on the things that are beneficial for their life.
That's so good.
All of us now are experiencing technology. Like I said, I didn't grow up with it, but I'm in the age of technology. So my thing is that the same way how I remain focused, we must teach the younger ones to remain focused as well. The things that are beneficial for their life. because there are so many distractions around us.
There is so many ways to
And
get
the enemy is very creative and crafty.
discover. It's very true. It's very true. And he can use that same technology as you were speaking earlier. That technology that could be a blessing can also be a curse depending on what you use it for. Depending what strongholds you're struggling with, it's going to show up in your use of technology as well. I want you to circle back around. You spoke a lot about our faith and what we as parents need to be teaching our sons about their relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
How can faith and spiritual discipline help young men overcome these battles?
I said earlier, and I'm going to add to that,
Yes.
that when we let them know who God designed them to be, introduce them to themselves, we must let them know if it's a boy that God made you to be a male, a boy, not a girl. If it's a girl, God made you to be a girl or a female, not a man. You don't need to try to be a man or try to change things around. Same thing with the boy. And this is why I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it this afternoon. And this is why there are so many young persons today, they are sexually confused. They're just trying to, they don't really know who they are because their parents never told them that, hey, God made you a male, a boy. You don't have to try to change things. You don't have to try to act like a girl or whatever the situation is. God did not make any mistake. The same thing with the young girl. God made you a girl or a female. You don't have to try to be a boy. You don't have to, when you see things, and you must teach them too at a very young age. I am grateful for a good wife, and I watch her teach our young daughter that when someone touches you in a certain area inappropriately, that is not right at a very young age. Same thing with the boys. You know, someone touch you in your private area, especially whether it be girl or boy at a young age, that's still not appropriate. You either report it to the teacher or report it to your parents. We stop teaching that. We stop, a lot of parents today stop teaching their kids that.
Wow.
You know, this is very important. And this how I said earlier, this is how the enemy is so crafty and creative. You know, he just want the kids to accept the fact that this is normal, but the devil is a liar. You know, a next boy touching you, touching my son inappropriately, and that's normal. This is what the enemy wants us to accept. A next girl touching my daughter inappropriately, and we're supposed to accept it and say it's normal. You see how creative the enemy would try to be at times. But this is where the parents come in. The parents and the mentors have to teach these young kids at a very young age, teenagers, young adults, and even some case infants, uh, uh, the young toddlers. That when somebody, I don't care who they are, even in some cases, I've heard some crazy stories. Even parents molesting children. You know, so we have to teach them at a young age. What does it mean? Here it is. What does it mean to be touched inappropriately? You know. Now, if
Yes.
if someone, when the kid is young, we must, in some cases, we shower them, we bathe them up. When they become older, why are we touching them in these areas? Why a parent touching them in these areas? Unless it's some type of emergency or something. We must teach them to understand what is appropriate and what is inappropriate.
Pastor Jason, I'm going. I want to challenge. You made some great. Everything you said was accurate. I mean, of course, it was on point. But
Yeah.
we're gonna take it up a notch. We're gonna turn up the heat a little bit
Uh,
because Pastor Mason, a lot of parents do teach their children it's inappropriate. About
yeah.
inappropriate touching. Um, a lot of parents have talked to their children about homosexuality and that lifestyle, things of that nature. But It does not stop those things from happening. So
Absolutely.
how do you nurture a young man, of course a young woman as well, who has been taught all the right things by parents, they've been in church, but they are dealing with this lifestyle, these emotions, these feelings, these urges, they've been exposed. So here they are. Here they
Yeah,
are walking in this identity that wasn't designed for them by God, but this is what they have taken on. As from a parent's perspective, um, how do you still nurture that child, guide them in the right way, and not tear them down as far as the relationship? How do
that's a
you
very,
do that
very, very good question.
18, 19, 20 years old? And so that teenager, that young adult, and I'm just going to be, like you said, blunt, is not going to want to, is not going to be receiving of the parent continually to preach about God and what God did and how he created you and this and that. How do you still move forward in nurturing that child? Because there's still other ways in society and in that young man's life that he can still grow up with other aspects of their responsibility and development into a healthy lifestyle in dealing with that.
Wonderful question. These are relevant questions, and these are questions that are needed on platforms such as this. And today's society, I believe, it's what we used to hear this a lot. This statement growing up, that prayer still changes things. A lot of folks hear it, and they quote it so casually and so loosely, but it is still effective. And I think, as a pastor and as a believer, we have to look at people from godly perspective. God don't hate the person; He hate the sin.
Mhm.
What are you saying? What are you saying, Pastor Jason? I'm simply saying that your duty as a pastor, your duty as a parent, your duty as a mentor, you must not cut that line where you show love towards that person. You hate the sin, you hate what they're doing, but God still expects for you to love that individual. That person is still a soul. The Bible talks about him that winneth a soul is wise. And while you're talking to them, you're telling them that I'm praying for you.
Yeah,
I'm praying for you. You know, a lot of times we pray for situation and circumstance, and we don't even know God is working behind the scene. God is working behind the scene. There's still power in prayer. God still answers prayer. You know, we started off the program tonight. We're talking about training up the child in the way they should go. In that scripture, never said they ain't gonna stray sometime. We
exactly.
we 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 always hear with the prodigal son. I'm sure that was a great father. Based on the story, he was a great father. Did the son stray? Yes, of course he strayed. But guess what? He came to himself. Our prayer should be, and this is the answer to your question. Our prayer of as us as parents should be God help my son or my daughter come to themselves. Very simple prayer, but powerful. God, Father, help my son or my daughter who's dealing with this stronghold. We talk about hidden stronghold, who's dealing with this stronghold or whatever it may be, drugs, and it may be homosexuality, lesbianism, when it may be pornography, whatever stronghold that they're dealing with, God help them to come to themselves.
I
Help
love it.
them to realize that this is not your will for their lives. That should be that parent or that mentor prayer tonight. Help them to realize that this avenue or this vein that they're going in is going to ultimately destroy them. Help them come to themselves. Help them to shake themselves loose. Help them to come to their right state of mind. If we would have more prayerful parents, more prayerful mentors, more prayerful our leaders in our society, I believe the youth will straighten up and fly right. Someone might be saying, well, there are some things that prayer can't change. I don't believe that.
Oh, well, yeah, I
I
don't
don't
believe that
believe
either.
that. Because as you pray, God will show you how to navigate, how to deal with that person. Not only that you're praying that God deliver them and set them free, you praying God, you're asking God for the wisdom to deal with them. How do you relate to them? You're asking God for the wisdom on how to relate to them. You're asking God to show you avenues that you could show even more love. Because love covers what? A multitude of sins.
A multitude. Absolutely.
Because of your love and the way you react to that son or that daughter, it can help them come to themselves. We're talking about the same thing again. Help their mind to come to reality. Help them to shake off whatever stronghold is trying to keep them hostage.
That is
That
great.
love, that you got to keep that going as a parent.
Absolutely. You bless
And
some households with that response, because love is the first commandment, the top commandment from Jesus, to love one another, and that our children are no different. And as you stated, we could teach them and build them and guide them in the ways of God and the ways of the Father, but they're going to go through different seasons, and whatever it may be, we can find our child straying. And you thinking, oh no, not my child. I've done everything right. I've said, prayed for them. I guided them. I directed them. I lived by example. But it still happens in some households. Thank you
yes,
for giving the parents the words to pray over their children, because sometimes, and I have to be a witness, sometimes when the going gets tough, the enemy can take your prayer where you're just wiped out, you're just heartbroken, you're distraught for whatever reasons that your young adult child may be going through. And he can take your prayer, he can take your words, but pray anyway. Pray through the pain. If you can mumble it, he's still going to hear you. You could be
absolutely.
crying tears on your pillow. The Father is still going to hear you. Say the words anywhere and get that prayer out. Get it out. That was such a helpful advice you had for the parents. Pastor Basden, do you have any closing sentiments you want to add on this topic about the hidden strongholds of a young man's life?
Absolutely. And my word to the parents is, guess what? Don't give up on that child.
Yes.
Don't give up on that son. Don't give up on that daughter. Don't give up on the person that you're mentoring. They may fall sometime. They might find themselves in a situation where they don't even know how to get there. But sometimes they just need somebody to tell them, stay in the fight, get back in the fight. You fall, get back up. Because if the truth be told, all of us have made some mistakes in life. All of us had fall into situation or circumstance. None of us are perfect. You know, the Bible talks about all of sin and fall short of the glory of God. This is why it's so important for us to not when we look down to push them down or to keep them down, but when we look down at them, we lend a helping hand to pull them up and to keep them in the fight. Let them know that, hey, sometimes you're going to make mistakes. Sometimes you're going to find yourself in dilemmas and problems. But guess what? Problems, they ain't going to last always, you know? And you
Mhm.
must teach them the value and the power of prayer. We talked about this earlier.
Yes.
Power of prayer and staying connected to God. This is critically important for us as parents, because a lot of times the children don't pray, they don't believe in God, they don't have a relationship with God. The reality is because they never saw their parents. They never saw their parents pray. They never saw their parents take up a Bible. They never saw their mother or their father went to church.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
So you can't tell a child you should do this or you should do that if they never saw you doing it.
That's true.
You some would say you're a hypocrite, but the reality is you need to start doing stuff that that child can follow up and do the same thing in actuality, make their lives better.
So good. They have to have something they can relate to in what you're giving them as far as direction. And so we all know children and young adults all the same. They do as they see you do, not as you say. They hear your words and they may know that what you're telling them is right. But when you're not living it, when you're not that example, it's going to take so much more to help them get back on track and get the help that they need.
Yeah.
Pastor Jason, you've been so very helpful. I really enjoyed this conversation tonight on hidden strongholds in a young man's life. I know this is blessing someone and blessing a mother, young men, and I want you to. Someone may want to get in touch with you to ask for your advice, to lean on your knowledge and your wisdom in the Word of God. How can someone get in touch with you if they want to reach out?
Well, I have a number of platforms on social media. I also have a ministry platform, Iron Prayer and Healing International Ministries. You can find us on Facebook. And also, I am Basden on Facebook. And also, we have this Man Up Networking on Facebook. And you can also reach us if you want to reach us by email, dphim@gmail.com, or you can actually call us if you need some type of counseling or you need someone to talk to. My number is 1-365-994-8222.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your contact information. I'm sure someone is going to reach out because you dropped a lot of knowledge and a lot of nuggets here this evening. And thank you again for being our guest. I want to say thank you to our viewers who tuned in today and who contributed to the chat. We greatly appreciate you. Make sure you share this live with some loved ones, families with households of young men, or to the young men directly that is struggling with something, struggling with some strongholds. We don't have to look far to find someone who is struggling with something. So make sure you share this live.
Amen.
Thank you, our viewers, for tuning in to Blueprint for Success tonight. We love and appreciate you. Join us again on Thursday at 5:30 Central Time, 6:30 Eastern Time. You all have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.